The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to the Ring and All of Sports. My name is Leo Connors. I'm your host, and tonight I got a special guest making a second appearance on the show, Maverick Wild. Mav.
Nice to see you, Leo.
You too. Thank you very much. Seeing that you've already been on before, we don't have to do that get to know you interview, and we'll play the name game somewhat, but a little differently tonight. But we got some fan questions.
Okay.
And the first one's from Uncle Eddie, Ed Hunt. He says, how many times did you light Tough Talk Tony Spencer on fire, and are you sorry that it was extinguished?
See, I lit Tony Spencer on fire twice in a 1-month period. One time, he was I asked to borrow somebody's lighter, and he was setting up a ring, and I just walked up behind him and started catching the back of his shirt on fire. So I don't know why he wouldn't think I would never do it again.
Right.
But we came back to the same place 3 weeks later, and I go behind him, I'm talking to him, and I get the lighter, and I get his shirt set on fire again, and I'm talking to him, and I'm like, yeah, wasn't that great last 3 weeks ago when I set you on fire? Yeah, that was kind of funny. You smell smoke?
No.
As far as, am I unhappy that I put him out?
Yeah.
I'm not so much unhappy that I put him out. I'm sad I didn't have a shovel to do it with.
Now, was that for your promotion when you did
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, you can only get away with things like that when you're running your own.
Right.
I mean, I would be an HR nightmare in a real wrestling company. I really would be.
So, all right, next we got Ref Rich Lannon says, what are your thoughts on the Asian sensation, Bruce Wee, and his wrestling gear or non-wrestling gear?
I don't remember much about the gear. I just remember I saw him on a couple of shows, and I remember one specifically. I think it was in Wethersfield, Connecticut. I want to say it was. He was wrestling Tiny the Terrible.
Yeah.
And the match defies description.
Right.
I just know at the very end of the match, he went. The Asian sensation went for a very stereotypical at the time thing that Japanese wrestlers
Right.
did. They would throw salt or powder, and usually you're supposed to throw it in the other guy's eyes,
Right.
and blind him, of course. Well, for whatever reason, Tiny the Terrible was not facing him, and I don't know if Bruce Wee, the Asian sensation, got nervous. What happened exactly, but he threw it at the back of his head, and then Tiny the Terrible, collapsed slowly, like he was hit with some type of magic knockout powder. So all I could say is he wasn't that sensational.
And it's funny because Rich posted that.
Yes.
So that was great. Thanks, Rich. And thank you too, Uncle Eddie. Nathan Fuller, a kid that constantly sends us questions. Thank you, Nathan. You're awesome. He wants to know, what do you think of New Japan Pro Wrestling?
I shouldn't say I don't follow it, because I really don't follow too much televised wrestling of any form. So I probably don't follow it much less than I follow the WWE stuff or the Ring of Honor stuff. I have seen some of it. They're marketing themselves as a competitive product.
Yeah.
They're trying to be a competitive product eventually here, I believe.
Yeah.
I thought signing Chris Jericho was brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very good idea. And plus, they're trying to. They have Kenny Omega, who is very talented. Wasn't a big fan of some of the stuff he did early on in his career.
Yeah.
I'm not quite Jim Cornette on that. But it was,
silly.
But it was very, very silly.
Yeah.
But I mean, he does very good for himself as a serious athlete. I mean, they have an incredible talent roster, and
Definitely.
even just of Americans they do.
Yeah.
You know, the cons of it is I think I have always thought, especially in the last 15 years, that Japan has never gotten away from guys cranking each other in the head as hard as they can.
Yeah.
It's getting
Stiff.
worse and worse and worse, and I don't know that part of it I really don't like, because I think it's a recipe for a disaster, and there have been
Unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some cases,
Right.
you know, in Japan, you know, and years ago, a wrestler named Hayabusa, I believe.
Hayabusa,
Hayabusa, that was it.
Yeah.
And he broke his neck. I
Yeah.
think it was on a moonsault attempt.
He was talented, too. He really was.
Yeah. But I guess Muda is just now retiring.
Yeah, I guess I saw a video today that was his last moonsault attempt.
Yeah. My first moonsault would have been my last moonsault. He's 55 years old, and I guess he's having double knee replacement, and that pretty much does it. And that's unfortunately a subject I'm familiar with. I need knee replacement surgery on my left. So
Nice. I follow New Japan just a little bit, not as much, not like I should probably, seeing I have a wrestling talk show.
Yep.
But very, very talented roster. Like you said, the American roster, the Americans on the roster is awesome. George Carroll, a friend of mine, is the U.S. ambassador or booker or whatever, I enjoy watching it. That's all I can say. All right, so listen, I got some other things I wanted to talk to you about too. What kind of problems did you have after you stopped wrestling?
If you wrestle for any amount of time, I mean, even for a short period of time, say 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're bound to pick up some type of chronic injury or a few chronic injuries. I wrestled for combined active time in the ring was somewhere around 25 years. Wow. And I was very active for about 15 of that. Right. So, I've done quite a bit of damage to my body over the years. I mean, I didn't do backflips off the top rope, but, to compensate for that lack of agility, I took falls that I probably had no business doing. Right. So I've already had 5 knee surgeries. Wow. 2 on the right one, 3 on the left. The left one, as I mentioned, needs to be replaced. Right. I've had back surgery. My back went out really bad, and that happened, frankly, when I was in the middle of a comeback about 4 years ago. And of course, I stubbornly kept wrestling because I'm just an idiot like that. I have a grand ability to abuse myself. But it's not just the physical injuries too. I mean, the physical injuries wear on you, and then when you go to do something physically, you start to remember, what you used to be, and you start thinking you were what you used to be, and then you can't do it, and it screws with your head. It really does. Oh, I hate it. It really messes with your head, and then you don't want to be that guy that's older and bitter, but some of that is kind of unavoidable, and I think some of the younger guys I've talked to over the years have gotten a little of that sometimes, and I feel bad about that. I try to limit that as much as possible, but I think that just works into it sometimes, because you always want to be remembered as something. You want some basic level of respect. I've always told young guys that you shouldn't fall for the trap where people think this is all about honor and some type of code. We're not samurai, and we screw up and we commit seppuku. It's we're wrestlers. We're running around in our spandex underwear pretending to fight. But I mean, you want to be at least seen as you were good at that. And of course, when you're not really a famous wrestler, I mean, memories are short, and you go on some of these shows, and people looking at, younger guys are looking at, who the hell is this guy? But and that attitude has stung a few people over the years, and I feel bad about that. Like I said, I try and leave that to the side. Right. But the injuries are tough, though.
I can imagine. Big time. I can imagine that.
I mean, it's right here, what you're seeing. I've actually lost weight since the last time I was here, but so that's been about 4 months.
About 4 months, So 4.5, 5 months, maybe.
Last time I was here is about 285 pounds. I spiked all the way up to about 300.
Did you?
Yeah, I see, I tend not to be able to lose weight with a lot of heavy exercise.
Right.
And especially because of the knee, it's tough. But since then I've dropped down to about 275. So, but at the same time, it's rough. I'm trying to get my knee replaced at this point. I'm hoping in about 4 months it's actually going to happen.
Nice.
So until that time, I'm stupid. Until that time, I'm just gonna burn this knee down.
Right. I hear you.
Because I want to be because I have a goal now. I want to be
Right.
in shape for the recovery.
Yeah.
Because I think I'll get better quicker.
Right.
So.
Very nice. When you brought up how how you like the New England area wrestlers, okay?
Yes.
You had said, that it's tough because, you want to get some type of satisfaction. You want to be, not liked, but respected and all that.
Yeah.
Joe Bruin did a great thing. He still does it, with the New England Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. I think that's a great thing. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show and showcase the New England talent. Because I honestly believe that you deserve it, yourself included, and everyone that's come through.
The thing about this area is, and if nobody's noticed for the last 10, 12 years, a high percentage of the people they use on TV have come right out of this area.
Yeah.
They really have. And I think we talked about that last time.
Yes, we did.
And I think when we mentioned the NEPWA that Brian Fury runs, but you also shouldn't, I also failed to mention guys like Ryan Drew and Nick Steele, and the decent amount of guys have come right out of that school.
Top rope?
Yes, out of their school in Fall River. So, there's a lot of them.
Yes.
It's a rich little area for that.
There's a lot of training around here too. Slick's got his own school.
Yep.
The XWA down in Rhode Island. APW's got a school now with Louis Ortiz. It's great. And New England has always put out really good wrestlers. Always, That's why I'm proud to be from this area as a wrestling fan. All right, so you brought it up a few minutes ago. Why don't you tell us about your year-long comeback 4 years ago?
Okay. So I had gotten heavy right before that point too, and at that point I knew I could always come back, And I was like, at that point I weighed, I was heavy for me there at about 260 pounds. I was like, I need an incentive. I always need some type of incentive. I always need some type of goal to work towards. I said, I know one goal that I can do, and I can go back to wrestling. And that was an odd experience.
Yeah.
I guess looking back at it now, it was probably not a great idea.
Okay.
Not just for the injuries, because it just, that polished off, a lot of, chronic injuries. It just, completely mashed them. But, I knew I wasn't going to come back and be at the same speed that I was before. I knew that just wasn't possible.
Right.
But I wanted to be basically representative of what I used to be able to do in a ring. And some nights I was, and then some nights I wasn't. I found I lost interest quick.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I'd lose interest, in matches sometimes, which was never me, because I used to be very hyper-focused in the ring.
Right.
I was always a guy that thought I could find a way to make a match good.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that, and now I needed help with that. And
Right.
I didn't like that. I really didn't.
Right.
And I guess that's, that makes me a little bit of an egomaniac. I guess it does, but, so I had, like, very good matches with, like, Brandon Locke when I came back. I had a very good match with Jason Blade. I had a very good match with Setherin, although it was too short. That was my fault.
Yeah.
Guys who were kind of familiar with what I did,
Right.
But when I get into more unfamiliar, uncharted territories, guys that, weren't used to wrestling quite as freestyle as I did.
Yeah.
They were confused by it. I was confused by what they did, and it, it was kind of an odd mishmash of things.
Right.
Like I like Anthony Green, and it's really not much of a thing against him, but he really doesn't. That's a game that doesn't really exist all that much anymore.
Right.
And he wasn't really familiar with it. And we had a okay match,
Yeah.
and there was a couple other matches I was just They were not good with different people that I won't mention. I was happy. My last one was with Warbeard.
Nice.
Yeah, that was the very last one.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I'd been a little more mobile for him, but you know, it was good. You
Nice.
know, I liked it. It
Nice.
was,
Now, what companies did you work for in that year?
Um,
Were you running again, or
no. I can't assume that kind of financial
Right.
risk anymore.
Oh, I hear you.
You know, it's for one thing. To be frank, I was never really what I would call a great promoter. I was fine at coming up with ideas.
Right.
And you know, physically, I'm a hardworking bull.
Yep.
But you know, as far as being a promoter, that's a
Right.
different. Usually the best promoters aren't even wrestlers.
Right.
You know, they really, it's
Or
true.
they wrestle less than they
Well,
used to.
yes.
With Jeff, it seemed like he didn't do every show that he was on.
Or he would wrestle the same guys repetitive. That was more.
Yeah.
That was actually more it. He would wrestle the same
Okay.
guys he could trust, guys he knew
Right.
that were going to do what he did. But no, I mean I wrestled for Liberty States, Top Rope.
Yeah.
There were a few other ones in there. I wrestled on what was billed as a pro wrestling super show, and I know Top Rope bills their shows as pro wrestling super shows. This was like supposedly the summit of wrestling,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, the ceiling was about this high in the place.
Right.
I remember Devin.
Blaze?
Yeah, Devin Blaze.
Yeah.
He did something and broke a chandelier, and glass flew out of the crowd.
Right.
And it was like a 3-day thing, and a lot of guys didn't get paid, including fly-ins, including Kevin Sullivan. So,
Was that in Abington?
yes, it was.
I was there. I catered for the boys, and I did the concessions for
Yep.
those 3 days.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it was a great idea.
Yeah.
And I like Spencer a lot.
Yep.
I do. Just and I would never want to put him down because it takes a lot of guts to try to do what he did.
It does.
You know?
Yeah, it does.
But you can't go off the gate. You know that more than anyone.
No,
You know?
you can't. No,
But,
you have to be perfectly ready to lose every penny you put into it, and then a few more.
Yeah,
You know?
and I was bumming too because he canceled the Sunday show.
Yeah.
And that was when I was going to finally get to meet the Rock and Roll Express. Pretty much the reason why I jumped in to do everything
Yeah.
was to meet them guys and Kevin Sullivan, but it didn't work out. All right, what differences do you see in pro wrestling now compared to 15 or 20 years ago? I'm sure you kind of touched up a little bit on it a minute ago, but
Yeah. Well, no.
No?
Just physical
Yeah.
differences. This is going to sound like a bit of a bitch to the younger guys, and it probably is. But if guys nowadays, if they don't have ropes that are taut,
Right.
very very tight,
Yeah.
and and they don't have a ring that maybe doesn't have some give to it, not all of them, but I've seen guys use that as an excuse to not have a good match. Where I was always taught that you worked with the equipment you had.
Right.
Don't be dependent on your equipment.
Right.
I mean, I was trained in part by guys that they worked in old halls and auditoriums
Yeah.
that actually had the auditorium would have their own ring.
Right.
And in one case it was in California. Captain USA told me about this one. Danny Patiglio. It was a stage.
Yeah.
And the stage had 4 holes in it. And that's where you dropped the ring post. You just threw some pads and canvas over it, rigged the ropes up, and you went to town.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's different.
but I mean, some guys are familiar with it. I know Brian
Right.
Fury would be, and Sethron would be, because they worked in they went to Mexico on a 3-day weekend,
Right.
and they worked a big show in Tijuana, I think for AAA, I think it
Right.
was. But usually the day after or the day before, they worked inside of a Mexican prison, which was
Wow.
concrete pad,
Right.
4 posts, a little bit of padding.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I've heard. Now, you did go on that trip, right? But Jeff was on that trip and Rip
I
too?
was supposed to go.
Okay.
And, well, they wanted me to go, and I said, I don't want to go to Mexico.
Right.
I don't want to go wrestle in a Mexican prison. So I just, it never meant, I always had this saying, and some guys understood it and some guys didn't. I always used to say, why would I travel 1,000 miles to have a bad match when I can have a bad match right near home?
Right.
To which some guys would look at me, what the hell are you talking about? But, you know, I had no real desire to go to Mexico.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's fine if you're on a cruise or you're
Right.
you know, at a resort, but, you know, Mexico's a rough place. It really is.
It is.
You know, but so I had said, why don't you take Brian instead? You know?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure he could use the experience. I'm sure he'd like the experience. You
Right.
know?
Yeah,
Plus,
so-
they get to work that nice big AAA show
Yeah,
too.
it's got to be a great experience no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The highs and the lows of Mexico.
Yeah, but I mean, getting back to the equipment, I mean,
Yeah.
even the guys, they complain about the equipment if it's not just right. Do you remember the old Saturday night main events?
Oh yeah.
Those rings were stiff as
Were they?
hell.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so tough. The reason they were that stiff, I've read about this,
Okay.
is because they shot the first one, and the camera crews complained that when the guys hit the mat, the ropes moved and it threw off their autofocus. So they knew how to fix that.
Right.
You know. And I also remember doing a show for the WWF at the time at the Cape Cod Melody Tent.
Yeah.
And the equipment was fine. However, if you've ever been in the Melody Tent,
No, I've never been.
okay. So they have a stage.
Yep.
And they have that big 20 by 20 ring.
Okay.
And they put that up on the stage. And the stage is probably only about 24 by 24.
Right.
So
Barely enough room.
yeah, barely enough room. So Kurt Hennig got hit and went flying out over the top rope, off the ring and into the orchestra pit.
Wow.
So that was like that's the equipment he was working with.
Right.
So you know,
That's amazing. You know.
but you know, it's not just equipment. There's so many differences to it.
Yeah.
I mean, from the way the guys greet each other and stuff,
Yeah.
to the way they talk to each other. I can't imagine somebody like. I was never going to make it. I was never going to make money in professional wrestling, anyways. But I can't imagine somebody like Mr. Fuji existing. Have you ever heard any backstage stories about Mr.
Oh,
Fuji?
yeah.
Some are too crude to
Yeah.
repeat here. But I remember specifically one that Silvano Souza told me, and they used to do the tapings out of Hamburg, Pennsylvania, at a field
Okay.
house. I think
Yep.
it was Hamburg. So they used to do all the interviews in front of the ring, set
Right.
up,
Yep.
you know, hours before. I mean, they
Right.
just parade the guys through. So Toro Tanaka was taking a nap on the ring apron, apparently. And Fuji did not actually get along with his tag team partner.
Oh wow. And they teamed for a long time.
And even if he did, he probably would have gagged him anyways.
Right.
So he's snoring away, you know. And I don't know who Vince McMahon was talking to, but I guess Fuji snuck around and wrapped his foot in toilet paper, and he set him on fire. And I'm not talking a Tony Spencer little
Right.
conflagration. I guess there was smoke all in the place.
Wow.
You know,
That's crazy.
I woke up, his foot was on fire.
Those guys were great to watch too as a tag team
Yeah.
back in the day. I remember. Did you ever see the thing on? It's on the network from Madison Square Garden. Professor Tanaka and El Olympico. It was before they let the masked wrestlers wrestle. So Olympico had his face.
Yes.
Tanaka's looking at the crowd, going, "What's wrong with this guy?"
Yeah.
And I think it was the same thing. This little old lady, Tanaka would throw the salt, and then he'd go to the next one. This little old lady, she had to be in her 80s. She comes over, brushes it off. Funny stuff, man. And those guys were great workers.
But even, I remember another Madison Square Garden show. Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid.
Oh, that match.
So, yeah, but again, they were used to working with ropes and things
Yeah.
like that. They were just so tight,
Right.
and you know, and you could kind of tell when Tiger Mask would go to his moves.
Right.
You know, the originator of what was it? What's Rey Mysterio call that kick?
The 619.
That 619.
Yeah.
Yep. He was kind of the originator of
Right.
that, where he just did a turn around
Yeah.
in the ring, and you know, the ropes are so loose you can see it just sagging down
Yeah.
and stuff. You know, it's just sometimes guys limit themselves. You know, they'll see a bad situation,
Yeah.
and they'll just sit on it, and they shouldn't do that because you know, if you really, really, really are passionate about it, find a way to work around
Right,
it.
Get fix it.
Yeah, you know, the ring sucks. Get over it. You know.
Right. Yeah. Just make the best of what you can
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
I understand that. All right, so now we are going to go into the name game, and we'll, please, stories, whatever you want. We're going to start off with the birthday boy today, who had a photo shoot that makes me like, wow. That makes me say, I'm glad social media wasn't around when I was a youngster.
Yeah.
Julian Star.
Yeah, Julian Cakenut star. That was quite a picture.
Yeah.
You know, one of the reasons I actually asked you to bring up Julian.
Yes.
One of the reasons was actually because he's a guy whose wrestling was cut short. He was very well built young man.
Right.
Very talented.
Yes.
And he was a guy who could adapt to work in a different way
Right.
than what you see today. Because I watched him wrestle Bob Evans,
Yeah.
who's going, it's going to be his match, and that's it, you
Right.
know. And not that I blame him, you
Yeah.
know. And Julian adapted to it. He had like a 25-minute match with him in Peabody
Nice.
one night. It was just incredible to watch,
Right.
you know. And plus, on top of it, he's a crude bastard and an HR nightmare just like I would be.
Yeah.
So, you know, I dig that. So
Right.
that's why I asked you to bring him up, because I
Yep.
thought he was always talented. And I'm sorry a back injury took him out. You know, it really did.
It is too bad because I remember seeing him wrestle a few times, and he really was a great wrestler.
Yes.
And happy birthday again. So how about we move on to Antonio? I've actually watched a match on YouTube between you and this guy, Antonio Thomas.
Yes. And I love Tom. I always did. I always thought he got a raw shake on TV.
Yeah.
I really did. I
Right.
mean, you know, he did. You know, when we worked in Ohio Valley, they had a hot little gimmick going there,
Yep.
and then he got on TV, and I just didn't think they utilized him
Right.
completely correctly. I remember my favorite memory of Tom is actually the very first time I ever wrestled him. And I don't think I'm revealing too much that, you know, we actually may talk about our matches prior.
Right.
And I didn't ever talk much about my matches.
Yeah.
So I went out of my way to, like, talk this match to death, you know, like 100 things, you know. Just
Yeah.
remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this. And I got in the ring and I changed everything. Whoa, whoa, shut up,
Right.
let's go, kid. Come on.
Nice.
Just-
He had to adapt.
yeah, yes, he did, and he adapted rather well.
Right.
But he always told me, he said, you know what, I was always so nervous in the ring. And he said, that was the first time I can remember having fun in a match.
Nice.
You
That's
know?
awesome.
And, you know, if you watch guys like The Rock and stuff like
Yep.
that, or Cena even, those are the guys that are having fun in the ring, and that's why
Right.
they're so good, or big part of the reason. They're enjoying themselves, and it comes through in their performance.
Yep.
You know?
Definitely. And I'm going to just skip down a couple names seeing you said that because these guys seem like they have a lot of fun in the ring. The Mill City Hooligans, Chase Del Monte, and the Logan Brothers. They honestly and truthfully look like they're having a lot of fun. I know they're heels and all that, but they do look like they're having a good time, and they're talented.
They do. They do. They enjoy themselves very much in the ring. I mean, you know, it's just some people are real tight asses in the ring, and
Right.
some people aren't, and they aren't. You know, that was kind of a neat genesis to see with the Logans. I knew I worked with Chase. I wrestled Chase a lot.
Right.
You know, so and you know, he used to pound the living crap out of him. You know, and then he'd pound me right back. Now you're getting it, kid.
Right.
But, you know, so he got loosened up a lot earlier. But you know, the Logans kind of learned to loosen up.
Yeah.
In their style and the way they approach things. It took a little while, but they became very, very good.
Yeah.
And they were always very talented physically, but just, you know, their work developed, you know,
Right.
how they approached a match, their attitude towards it, you know, how they brought it in front of a crowd, you know, which was really what they were missing. And they
Right.
seem to have latched onto that pretty well at this point. I mean, very, very good, you know, and you can't take that away from them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think those guys could wrestle anywhere and get over. Honestly, they're polished.
Very, very
You
good
know?
way to put it. They are very polished.
How about you've talked about him before on your first appearance, but any other funny Kevin Butcher Hughes stories? There's got to be something.
Oh, he's just Kevin was. If you ever wanted to have fun with somebody going out to eat, go to a buffet
Yeah.
with Kevin the Butcher Hughes. It just no social barriers whatsoever.
Right.
Just you know, I don't know if I told this story last time, but we went to this buffet. I watched him eat at this buffet. Right?
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, it's all you can eat. You can go up and get whatever the hell you want to,
Right.
as much as you want to. He would pile his food up. It looked like a beehive. You know. it would be, I'm exaggerating a little, but,
Right.
Sonny Goodspeed could probably relay this too.
Yeah.
Just this massive pile of food that you can get all you want of. It's going to be there all night.
Right.
So he had a big belly here.
Yep.
All right, here's the plate. And he always did this move. He put his hand under the food he was about to fork up. Because, you wouldn't want to, why would you want to drop this precious cargo, And, and the hand would go with the fork. Every time it was, Kevin, if you drop some, you go get another egg roll.
Right.
It'll be fine.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it. But he was just, he was wacky. It just,
Right.
I was in a match with him one night, and it just, talk about not talking anything over. Oh, my God. Somehow, like about 20 chairs ended up in the ring, and Scott Dickinson, the referee's running around the outside ring, and Kevin's just taking chairs and dropping them on him. As he runs around the ring, dodging them, And everybody was scared to death of him, but he was gentle as hell.
Yeah.
Unless he hated you, then he was going to kill you.
Right.
But he was gentle and nuts, and I love the guy.
Nice. I actually talked to him quite a few times. He actually gave me some videotapes.
Oh, really?
When I used to go do sell the merchandise at Jeff Show. He's like, you got a lot of stuff. He gave me I want to say it was like pro wrestling in the 50s and
Yeah.
60s. It was. I think I still have them too.
Yeah.
So how about Dancing Dukes Dalton?
I always liked Dukes. I mean, him and Mike Hollow were really the genesis of that whole New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
Right.
And they were the main trainers there. Mike was, a lot more serious-minded. I'm not going to say that Dukes didn't take the training of the guys seriously.
Right.
But the guys tend to favor him because he was a little more fun.
Yeah.
Although Mike was a very solid, serious trainer. And,
Right.
Plus, he was just a kick to work with. I mean, he had a very large personality. He really did. And sometimes you didn't see it because some of his humor was kind of dry, but he was just a very and talented as all hell.
Yeah.
Really was. Good guy. I like Dukes.
Nice. All right. How about Joey Eastman?
Joey Eastman was. I didn't know who Joey Eastman was until I was running my own shows, and he was living out in Chicago. He had lived out here.
Yeah.
And I got an email from some kid in Chicago who said he was a manager out there, and he was coming back home to live, and he was looking for places to wrestle, to ply his craft out this way. And so I said, well, I watched a couple things with him. I didn't really know who he was, and I said, well, I'll take him out to the ring with me, and if he screws up, I'll just hurt him or something. It'll be fine. Come to find out, he lived in the New Bedford area for years and years where I first started off.
Right.
And I guess he used to go to every damn show that was
That's what he
down
said
there.
on Facebook the other
And
day.
he always bust my nuggets over it. I used to have, when I first started off, I used to have this sparkly headband that I wore,
Yeah.
and just for a cheap reaction, I used
Yep.
to take the thing off and work each side of the ring, and it was gonna, to who I was gonna throw it out and trying to get the loudest reaction. And he always said, I wanted that garter belt. It's not a garter belt, it's a headband. It's a dirty garter belt, Maverick. Anyways, he always said, you would never throw it to me. I was so pissed at you because you would never throw me this dirty, stinking garter belt. It's not a garter belt, it's a headband.
Oh, Joey. He's definitely one of the funniest guys I've ever met.
Oh,
he really is.
He's hilarious. He has no... the best story I could actually have about Joey Eastman, there was I don't know if it's still there. There's a bar right down the street from here, and they did karaoke on Friday nights.
Okay.
And we were coming in after a show, and he had somebody with him, and I forget who, and I brought a guy who wrestled as Master Flesh with me, and
Paul?
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
So we're at karaoke,
Yep.
and things aren't really exciting until Joey Eastman decided to do a rendition of "I Touch Myself."
Nice.
So
I can see it.
it's just the energy that he had. First of all, he didn't need, you're supposed to sit there on stage
Yeah.
and read the words.
Yeah. He knew them all.
He knew them all, and he didn't stay on stage. He was going from table to table,
Right.
jumping up on chairs, just singing it full blast.
I'd love to see that.
Oh, I wish there was tape of it.
Right.
The crowd in the bar was coming unglued. He ended the performance up on top of the bar. And, he did the most ribald thing with a towel while I touched myself. Thing was going on.
Yep,
I was
doing the drying between the legs.
oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
He was doing the butt floss.
That's
yeah, and
hilarious.
it was just unbelievable. It was.
Nice.
It was a shame there's only 3 other guys that I knew.
Right.
And then a lot of rednecks came up and tried to do country songs, and it was over.
And the fun was done.
Yeah,
right?
the fun was done.
Well, Joey's buddy came on the show once before, Sidney Bacabella.
Ah,
So I'd
okay.
love to get Sidney back in here again. I'm
I'm not so sure your producer would like that.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna save these two for near the end.
Okay.
How about you brought him up earlier, Captain USA?
Danny Patiglio, Captain USA. Hope I'm not giving away too much there, Dan. He was when I first met him, he actually wrestled as Dr. Dan Petty.
Oh, okay.
And he trained alongside of Jeff Costa and Butcher Hughes.
With Killer?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow, I didn't know that.
That's where his original origins were. And you can actually, if you go back and watch a few of them, if you can find them, you can go watch the Bruiser from Bedlam tapings.
Okay.
And you will watch Danny Patiglio and Dan Petty in the ring, and it's like, wow, he's really good. He was really just smooth from
Right.
hold to move to hold to move to hold and move, and he was phenomenal. He really was. I don't think people got that. He wasn't a bombastic personality.
Right.
So when things came around into the mid to late 90s, you kind of needed that element.
Yep.
And he didn't really have that, so that's where the Captain USA thing came.
Right.
You had the USA gimmick.
Yep.
And he usually worked with Jeff, the Lobster Man, but not always. And he was always very good to wrestle. That was a guy where I had to learn how to meet in the middle.
Right.
Where I say, I think younger wrestlers could probably stand to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, because you're going to come across people that are older and their skills are not, they don't lack skill. It's just you're not quite familiar with how they do it.
Right. Now, the Bruiser for Bedlam, was that the Rocky Raymond? It was the commentator? Okay, no.
I don't know if Rocky Raymond did the commentary.
Okay.
I'm terrible at recognizing voices, but I mean that was Walter. That was Killer Kowalski's TV show.
Nice. Okay, how about a guy that I haven't seen since Jeff ran, Iron Man Tim Walker?
I still talk to Tim Walker occasionally, really occasionally. He's a pudgy old man at me, like I am at this point. He was a tough son of a bitch. He really was.
Right.
It was good. He was just so tough. You could pound on him and pound on him and pound on him, and he'd just keep getting up. And it was like, would you just stay down, please?
Right.
I had a lot of respect for him. He was a hard-working guy. He was a tradesman like me. He was. He worked in the Iron Workers Union for a while. I think he still does.
Right.
I mean, he was just so rugged and tough, and I have an affinity for people like that. I have an affinity for anybody that can go get beat up, twice a week and then go do a job that beats them up on top of it,
Right.
which is, like I have a lot of respect for guys like Mike Baker,
Yeah.
Yeah, because,
counts.
he's got a harder job than I do.
Does he?
Well, I do mostly, commercial. I do mostly commercial flat roofs.
Okay.
He does all shingles, and
Oh,
that's
wow.
really tough on your knees
Yeah. I've
and ankles.
actually done that before.
Yeah, it's rough.
It is.
He does that all the time.
Right. How about a guy that always entertained me? He could just come walking out and just look at the crowd, and he was entertaining. Ashgate.
I didn't always get along with Arch.
Oh, really?
The best thing I can do is tell a story. He was not the most physically talented of wrestlers. I think he would admit that.
Okay.
So Jamie from Chaotic formerly.
Yeah.
If you're listening, you've never heard this story, but you're about to. So I did a little 3-match set with him in their Lowell place, and I think we did it in Methuen as well. Yeah, the old PAV.
Yeah.
So it came down to Arch was very eclectic on the microphone. He was very, and it was effective.
Yep.
So it came down to we did a chain match, dog and collar chain match, not tag in the corners, just beat the hell out of each other. And so Jamie said he didn't want any blood in this thing. So when you're tethered to somebody at the neck by a chain, I always thought there was really only one point to the match. Somebody's gonna have to, at least one person's gonna have to bleed. So sorry, Jamie. I took Arch aside and said, "So I'm gonna break you open in the ring. We're not gonna do the traditional methodology. I won't mention that, but you're gonna get broken open in the ring." So what was supposed to happen was, I put him in a figure 4 leg lock.
Yeah.
And he came up, and I had the chain wrapped around my hand, and I popped him really hard. So I whacked him, and I whacked him hard. I mean, I buried the thing, and nothing.
No blood.
So nothing. And I hit him hard.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, well. So stupidly, he comes up again. I just whacked it. I just hit him with everything I had.
Right.
Boom! Nothing. You always hear about older guys being able to do this.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not one of those older guys who can do this. So I'm like, well, I'm going to try one more time.
Yeah.
So he don't want to come up this time. But, I mean, he's tied to me by a chain. So I'm literally using a chain like I'm pulling a truck out of the mud. He's fighting. I don't want to, no. Ah, shut up. Bang. Everything. No blood whatsoever. That was it. That was the finish of the match.
Wow.
So, Jamie, you got your wish. You didn't see any blood, but I was swinging for the fences. That's among the 2 hardest I've ever hit anybody in my entire life. Wow. And I'm talking real fights and everything.
Yep.
I don't know what his head felt like after that, because I tell you, my fist hurt for 2 weeks after that.
That's great. How about Slick Wagner Brown? My daughter's favorite wrestler of all time. Yeah.
Really?
Daughter, yeah. She don't watch wrestling or even go with me anymore, but when she was little, she loved Slick.
So
Loved him.
Slick was tied in with, when I first met him, he was tied in with April Hunter.
Yep.
And she looked at it a lot more, how can I put this? She was very career-oriented, which is fine, but the way you approach a career in wrestling and the way you approach it in some other fields is completely different.
Oh, I mean, so yeah.
She kind of rubbed the boys the wrong way, and in turn, I think that got Slick a lot of heat backstage.
That's too bad.
But he was always very good, and frankly, I hate to say it, once he got away from her, he really came into his own, because he settled down and he realized, this is more than just a performance with a girl. I have to, and not that he was always a great athlete,
right?
But it was when he learned to settle in, and and the other aspects of what he did became more prevalent. I mean, of course, the story I have about him is not really about him; it's about April. So this is terrible.
This is gonna be good, guys.
Well, not super terrible, but we people know that she posed nude in a lot of magazines. Not all great magazines. So she had this duffel bag backstage, and I'm like, "What's that?" And she goes, "Well, that's my resume." And I'm like, "Your resume in the duffel bag?" So she opens up the bag, and it's all these magazines she'd appeared nude in. And some of them were We and Hustler and Swank level, and not many people probably know that now, but
real classy.
Real classy. They'd be in the plenty pack of porn at the variety store, and some of them. And she was actually a nice girl, but I just remember looking at her. I said, "Boy, my wife's a secretary. Her resume doesn't look anything like that."
Yeah, Slick was is still a hell of a worker.
Yeah.
And he's passing his knowledge on now. I don't know if you met one of his students, Ty Shine, I think they call him.
No, I haven't met him.
Watch for him because he's pretty damn good. How about a guy that I really enjoyed watching all the time, John Walters, or R.J. Brewer, if you want.
Sean Walters was, and I will say this again, was a guy I had to learn how to meet in the middle with.
Yep.
Because John was, I was a guy who took a lot of falls.
Right.
And I knew some wrestling. He was another level as far as the things he did. And it wasn't like, most of it wasn't like high flying stuff. He was very technical, and
Yeah,
he would
mat stuff, I mean.
yeah, he would twist you in ungodly shapes. So even back as early as my early 30s, I had flexibility problems.
Yep.
So John would twist me in these knots, and I was like, so, and he was good, but he wasn't really learning the give and take end of it yet.
Okay, yeah.
So, John, if you happen to watch this, I don't think I've ever told you this. We had a match. It was an Iron Man match at the PAV in Lowell.
Yeah.
And one of the things you like to do, he liked to chop you.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But I'd probably wrestled him about half a dozen times at this point, and it was just like, whew, good Lord, bang, 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 and getting
Right.
twisted in ungodly shapes. And I just remember we were outside the ring, and he hit me with a chop, and I have this very odd temper. It just flashes at the up. Sometimes it'll come up for no reason, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm finally sick of something. Well, I was like, all right, I've had enough. So I hit him in the head so hard with a forearm. It just is. I saw his eyes go, whoa! And then later on, we got in the ring, and he had me in this stretch. I've seen. I don't know the name of it.
Okay.
One leg you're on your belly, and
Yeah.
one leg's folded underneath the other one. The other one's grapevine, and he bridges back, and he grabs
Oh,
your
yeah, I
chin.
don't know the
right?
name of that.
And
That's
it's
a
it's hard.
tough
And
move.
again, I
Yeah.
have flexibility issues.
Right.
But I knew the counter for that, and it's hellacious.
Right.
So what you do is you slip your arm under the guy's jaw, and it hurts you to actually do the reversal.
Right.
But you pull him over the top, and basically what you have him in is an even worse version of what he has you in.
Right.
I literally. He was a guy I had to defend myself with to a little bit of a degree, but then really after that we worked a couple more times. We wrestled a couple more times, and there was it was like he kind of got it at that
Right.
point. It's like this guy's got some fight in him,
Yeah. And he had a pretty good little career. I mean, he did very well at Ring of Honor
Yes.
when he was there. And well, I don't know the name of the other company. I know it was like
was Lucha USA.
USA.
Yeah, Lucha
yes.
USA, yeah.
He did really well.
Yes, he
there.
did. Yeah,
Very, very, very talented. I met his dad before, which I'm sure you probably did too, maybe.
very briefly.
Yeah,
yes.
I met him a couple times when the Ring of Honor show. What a nice guy. His dad was really cool. I liked him a lot. All right, how about he was known as Ken Phoenix back then, if I'm not mistaken. Kenny Dykstra of the Squad. Because
Yep.
I can't say what the WWE thing he has goes by the Squad.
Okay, rah rah rah.
Yeah, yeah.
Bah. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So basically, everybody who and he's turned it into something now. Years
Right.
later, everybody got stuck with that gimmick with the outside, with probably the exception of Diggler.
Yeah.
Really, it kind of
Yeah.
sank their career. Ken was always very talented, always aggressive, always very. He got it. He was
Yeah.
very good. I wrestled him probably a half a dozen times over the years. I remember wrestling him in Ludlow, Mass. One time. We did about 20 minutes, and he was very, very, very serious-minded. He was very serious-minded,
Yeah.
and he was very career-oriented. And you can see some of that intensity sometimes. I guess he has some beef with some guys,
Yeah.
that he came up with. I mean, on the WWE roster,
Right.
that he's mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
But he was just very, very career-minded and always wanted to learn, always wanted to get better, and not always completely nice about it either. Which, no, that's fine. That's professionalism. It's the way it is.
Right.
You don't have to be an over-the-top, friendly, obnoxious son of a bitch like I am.
He I think, like you had said, like Dolph, got kind of the push eventually.
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
I think he was the best worker in that group, Kenny, not Dolph. And I mean that because you should
At the
see
time
back-
he was. At
Yeah,
the time he was.
Definitely, definitely.
Dolph Ziggler is.
He's incredible.
He's the way he falls
Yeah.
and the way he sells is just. That's a rarity in wrestling now. Somebody who can do that and take over a match and make it look good, no matter who he's in the ring with.
Right.
You know.
They just talked about his new contract too, where he could pretty much he doesn't have to stay till the end of the shows. I mean, and that's obvious because they know he's a good hand.
Yeah.
Good, especially like in the ring.
Yeah, he's not going anyplace.
Right. How about and around here he was called Aaron Stevens, but a lot of people only know him as Damian Sandow.
I knew him as Aaron Stevens.
Right.
I
Me too.
think I wrestled him once. Aaron was a very good-natured guy, very friendly. Always smiling. I never trust a guy that's smiling all the time. That's not true. He was a great guy, and he was a guy that really invested a lot in learning, and learning and learning. And a lot of these names that come up on this list that have gone on, that's one of the deciding factors with them. Is just always willing to learn.
Yeah.
And he was definitely of that mind.
Nice. How about Gino Martino, my son's favorite wrestler?
Gino Martino got his start wrestling for Jeff Costa, the Lobster Man. We called him the Golden Gorilla at that time. Big, affable guy.
Yep.
Really nice. I think he took the losing and winning too seriously sometimes at that point. I assume he's probably learned better at this point. But he, some guys get into this for different reasons, and and sometimes for the wrong reasons, and they learn to get rid of those reasons, and that's what he did. Strong as hell, scary strong. I mean, the guy can drive. Literally, he's in the Guinness Book of World Record for driving nails into a board with his head.
World's thickest forehead, they say. Unbelievable. Well, we got two names that we got to talk about real quick. Rip Morrison.
Rip Morrison will forever be the guy I rank as the man I like to wrestle the most.
Right.
The most giving wrestler I ever met in my entire life. Another guy who could just beat on and beat on and beat on, and he wouldn't retaliate in kind. He was just, he was too nice of a guy. I mean, he's one of those guys that was too nice for wrestling.
Right.
He really was. But he was sensationally talented. He really was. I mean, he didn't look like he'd be able to move like he did. You wouldn't expect what he did in the ring.
Right.
He was another guy. We talked about Gino was strong. This guy, Rip didn't know how strong he was.
Right.
Scary, scary, scary strong. I climbed to the top rope one night. They told him, just pick the corner of the ring up and I'll fall back. I didn't know if he could do it. I just wanted to see if he could do it. He did it. I surprised the hell out of myself. I almost killed myself.
Right? Yeah, no, Rip's always been fun to watch wrestle and stuff. Jeff Costa. Gotta bring him out.
So I know you had talked that you were possibly having him on the show soon.
He said eventually.
Yep.
He's got a bad back right now. It's flaring up. But
And he's he is so fun. And he can be infuriating too.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. He's a very, very, very opinionated and very, very strong-willed.
Right.
And he makes me look quiet and not obnoxious.
Right.
But I happen to love these things about him.
Right.
There's a term for wrestlers that a lot of guys have the negative connotation towards. It's called being a carny because it's originated in the carnivals.
Yeah.
And I remember I was talking to Steve Bradley one time and Alex Arian, and they were getting ready to start up basically, around New Hampshire.
Yep.
So
the WFA.
Yep. So they didn't. I don't think Alex didn't like him, but Steve didn't like him. And he started ranting and raving a little. That Jeff, he's such a carny. I said, yeah. And then they're looking at me, and I didn't get it for about 30 seconds. I said, oh, you think that means something bad? I mean, I loved the just total carnival atmosphere
Yeah.
that he did put on. I loved wrestling matches in 3D.
Yeah.
I loved chicken coop cage matches. I loved some of the stranger ideas he always came up. I like Congo Boy, the world's ugliest wrestler, where me and Danny Patiglio had to paint his nipples black. That true story. We're sitting backstage.
God.
We're sitting backstage, and here's the big Congo Boy debut. And we're talking to Jeff and how he wants him made up and how he wants him done up. Jeff actually put some thought into something that, usually details escaped him, but he had details for this night. And he's talking to me and Danny, and then you paint his nipples black, and then what you saw was this. Because we both heard it. Me and Danny both heard it.
Right.
And then we stopped hearing anything after that for about 30 seconds. And Jeff finally notices we're not really following the conversation. And Danny just looks at him and goes, "Did you say paint his nipples black?" And of course, Jeff would always had this big roaring laughter. Yes, I did. I mean, the stuff he just came up with.
Right.
I mean, for Congo Boy, the raw meat pull-off. He'd be attacking somebody.
Right.
And his manager, who was a transvestite, would throw meat away from the opponent, and he'd go storming after that. I just in the stuff in the rip-off gimmicks with Kevin Nash and Scott Hollis.
Those are so funny.
And it just and some people look at it like, oh God. I just looked at it, I was like, it's like satire. It's I like that,
Right.
I mean, I did, I mean, it was completely foolish, and sometimes I get on other people's cases for doing foolish things, but I guess that was my brand of foolishness. I really we often said, it's like, one night we can come out here and bleed buckets, we can come back 2 weeks later and we can just do a reenactment of the Wizard of Oz out here.
Right.
And Maverick would have to be Dorothy. So
Well, it was funny with his shows, right? He would go just without any big stars.
Yep.
He was packing the place for a while, and then when it started to taper off, he was smart enough to bring in guys like Ted DiBiase to get the to get the crowd to come back.
Yep. And he was just all over the place. I mean, one night you'd just be bleeding buckets all over the place, and the next night you just do the goofiest. I'd be the man from Mars,
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And I loved it.
Rip had a lot of different gimmicks too.
Yep.
Definitely. You brought him up. We only got a couple seconds left, but anything you want to say to Warbeard Hanson while he's down in NXT? Because I know you really like him.
Dude, knock him dead. You're the best thing to come out of this area in quite some time. And I'm not crapping on guys like Dijak or down there or Biff or anything. You're really the best thing to come out of this area in the last 10 years. Yeah.
And worked his ass off to get it.
He certainly did. That was not a slow process.
No, and he kept coming back after setback after setback after setback. A lot of respect for that guy. A lot of respect for all of them, but a lot of respect for him.
Me too.
Definitely. Mav, listen, you want to come on and do the show with Jeff, me and you and Jeff?
Yeah, he could use the guidance.
All right. Thanks, Mav.
No
Guys,
problem.
that's it. We're out. Maverick Wild, Leo Connors. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.